How do you invest in oil? New build and buying off plan are appropriate to buyers who are looking to maximize their return on investment, whether they intend to use the property and live in it as their main residence or whether they intend to rent it or sell it on. In other words, you need to consider location and returns. An analysis of all the relevant factors should enable you, with the help of a little expert advice, to make the right decision. Apart from the obvious things like the weather and the scenery, you need to ask some very specific questions about your chosen location. All this should give you an idea of how popular your choice is likely to be and how likely your investment is to increase in popularity. In the first instance, we strongly recommend you employ the services of a lawyer based in the area of purchase. Laws vary greatly by country and sometimes by region within that country, hence the need to select a lawyer who is very familiar with the area. Buying off plan means reserving a property sometimes before commencement of the build. Developers like to sell as many as possible before starting the work in order to protect themselves and in some cases to earn more favorable bank rates. In this respect, if you are one of the early purchasers, it is always advisable to try and understand the lead time before building. Very often developers do not start before 70% of property stock has been reserved, but this does vary by country. In return for this inconvenience, prices are virtually always more favorable than buying a completed property or a resale. Remember, if you prefer to wait until you can physically see the construction, it will normally cost you more. Prices will still move upwards during the course of the build, so the sooner you can decide, the better value it is likely to be. Once you have decided and signed the contract, irrespective of the build stage, the price should be fixed. One of the main advantages to buying off-plan is that frequently you need only pay around 30% to 40% of purchase price, and often very little until completion. The balance can either be settled by cash or a mortgage, which is often built into the purchase price. In some cases, subject to the conditions of purchase, the contract will enable a buyer to sell the property before completion after having paid perhaps only 30% to 40% of the purchase price. Assume the property is sold before completion for €202 500, £135,000, then profit equals €52 500, £35,000. How do you intend to make your money from rentals or from selling the property, either quickly or in several years' time? Both have tax implications which need to be considered in the light of local legislation. The rental returns from a property need to be carefully assessed and not overestimated. Rentals are never guaranteed, and you should be careful not to take on something which you may struggle to pay for when it is not rented out. Look at local supply and demand. 30 weeks rental per year might be a reasonable expectation. This should produce a net return of about 6%, but also means that the property may be empty for 22 weeks per year. A secure development would mean you do not need to be concerned about leaving it unattended. However, thought should be given to security over the time the property is left unattended. Another issue is keeping the property in rentable condition, so you will need to organize some sort of property management in your absence. Will a developer provide this, or will you need to source a cleaner and gardener yourself? If you are looking at selling the property, you will need to consider the current capital gains situation. For example, capital gains tax for non-residents in France is 35%. It's a lot to think about, and all the factors need to be carefully considered and balanced before you make this important decision. Our agencies can advise you on the various investment opportunities available.